Welcome to the 124th episode of News Dump, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I'm local man Aaron Van Tile, joined today by Chronicle editor-in-chief Eric Schwartz and Chronicle reporter Isabel Vanderstoop. And we're joined in spirit by sponsors Summit Funding and The Roof Doctor. We were out of the office last week, so hopefully you listeners were able to, look out a window and maybe just enjoy the sounds and comfortable conversation of your relatives over Thanksgiving. How were yours, Thanksgivings, friends?
Mine was great. I watched you on my camera let my dog out.
Yeah.
And not letting my dog out. More interestingly.
You intimated you would be home Wednesday morning.
I did. So I realized that on Thursday morning. Or wait, yeah. I realized that too late. Fortunately, Charlotte's got a bladder of steel.
That dog.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It was like 28 hours.
Charlotte did some real jumping on me when I got through the door.
She's good.
Yeah, nice dog.
I haven't been on the podcast since I wrote the dog court series, and I just wanted to say that I'm sad to have missed that conversation because you guys you didn't get there. You know what I mean? You didn't get to the heart of it, but it's all right. Hopefully, if anybody wants to talk to me about that, they can just do that.
Well, it's all just a big joke to Aaron. He doesn't take the lives of dogs seriously.
Not even a little bit.
Never.
No, of course not.
As Charlotte will attest.
Your poor dog. Who did take the dog court stuff seriously was the commenter, who was very upset about it, and somebody with dog court responded to him and said, "Why don't you come by and check it out? Things are a lot different." And the commenter replied again and said, "I have, and they're not."
I think that was Chuck Snipes.
Oh, yeah, he's on the dad board.
Yeah.
He has been a great help to me and listens to the podcast and is basically the reason I got onto that story, because after we started reporting on Karma, the dog, and all of that happening, he was like, in a totally kind and great way, was like, no, this is wrong. You have to go back and tell this story with more completion. And it opened up this opportunity for me to talk to the county about all this different stuff that they do. And I just think it's the weirdest facet of government I've ever seen, probably.
Definitely the law and justice system.
It's pretty weird. Let's see. We've got some important news items here, but first of all, the most important news item of the week. This was a late addition to the notes. Isabel saw some swans.
Oh, you added that as...
He does have a heart.
Yeah, look at that. We got some swans on the soundboard.
I gotta say,
trumpeting.
On Friday, we got off deadline, and all of a sudden, Isabel just busted out of her office, knocked over 4 or 5 people, kicked the doors down, and yelled, "I'm going to take pictures of trumpeter swans." I saw her slide across the hood of her Buick and then jump in the front seat, and then she peeled out, hit about 3 or 4 cars, and drove over the median, heading
as we
south.
all know, 100% of people who would be excited about seeing swans drive Buicks.
That's true.
Me and my 99 Buick.
Your photos were great, though.
Thank you.
Both batches.
I love birds. If anybody knows me, they know I love birds. And one of the coolest parts about this job is that I've been able to go bird watching and bring that to people who read the paper, and I get paid to do that. That's the coolest thing. Couldn't ask for a better position. So,
and I don't think we've had trumpeter swans in the paper before. At least, a story about them and when they come and why and whatnot. So we have that in tomorrow's paper. You have that to look forward to, Lewis County.
When we did the Chehalis River trip, we interviewed Jay Gordon, who's the policy director with the Washington Dairy Federation. He's also on the Chehalis Basin Board. He has played a really key role in trumpeter swan population restoration over the last couple of years, and I mentioned him in the story as well. That's the only time that I can think of covering them specifically, but even then, it's not like they were there in May to take photos of, so it's a very cool migration thing.
And you talked to a Midwest expert as well. Can you tell us about that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was the funniest. So the Trumpeter Swan Society is headquartered in Minnesota, and their director, her name was Margaret Smith, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we protect swans all over the continent."
She's probably telling the story now about your Northwest accent.
Yeah.
This reporter called
No
today
kidding.
to ask about swans.
Yeah, it was great. She was so sweet and so happy to talk to me about them.
Have you thought about joining the Trumpeter Swan Society?
I have thought about like Audubon before. I think if ever I wanted to be more into birds than I am now, there's probably so many different career paths that they have just because it's an enormous organization. But yeah, I'm liking what I have now where I can dabble with the bird coverage every once in a while and then also do other things.
Christmas bird count is next. Isabel's
yeah.
going to go head count every bird in Lewis County and report back.
Personally.
Wow.
And name them all.
I heard it's going to be one lower than last year with the death of yardbirds.
Ooh, too soon.
Is it?
Yeah, it's about the right time, I suppose.
Let's get into some other news, although there is nothing more exciting than hearing
news.
somebody discuss how they looked at birds. News out of Thurston County. Derek Sanders declares victory in sheriff's race, starts preparing for roll. I don't have anything too exciting about this one other than Derek Sanders is only 28.
Yeah, he's a young guy.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, he took John Snaza down in that race, who's been in that office, I think, since 2011. He politely said that he honors him for his service and that he's welcome to visit the sheriff's office whenever he should like.
Good subtle dig there.
Yeah, kind of.
In other election news, Joe Kent seeks financial support for recount in 3rd Congressional District.
I have a question about this one. On the link to it, there's no byline. Did you write this
It
up?
was a Colombian story. I forgot the byline.
okay,
I need to get
okay.
it added on there.
Got it. Okay.
Otherwise, it looks like Jared wrote it because his photo credit's on there.
Yeah.
Typical liberal media.
That's
Hiding
the curse.
behind no byline.
The curse of the photographer is they get all the angry emails because their email is the first one at the top of the page.
Yeah.
It's true.
Anyway, quote from the story from Joe Kent's statement Friday. It says, given the number of ballots left to cure, they keep throwing that out like it means something.
It does.
And the
It does
small
mean something.
margin between myself and my opponent, it's possible that the eventual margin will require a mandatory recount per state law. However, if it narrowly misses that margin, my campaign is taking steps to raise money to pay for an optional recount that is also allowed under state law. If I wanted a job and needed a recount to get it, I would simply pay for it myself and not ask for handouts to do so, which sounds like socialism.
Curing does mean something.
To ask for donations?
Give me money so I can get the job that you don't want me to have.
Curing does mean something, which we'll talk about in the story following this next one.
Also,
God,
I don't think that...
the one following this
Yeah,
one about Mint City coffee roasting?
The
Are they
one
curing
following
their
that.
coffee?
I just want to say I don't think it's that outrageous or outrageous at all. That it's interesting, but that he's going to fund his own recount. It is an extremely close race.
He's not going to fund his own recount. He's asking
asking
somebody
for
to give him money
donations to
fund
do it.
for
Do you
him.
act like this is the first time this has ever happened?
Nobody knows what his real job is. You'd think that could pay for
The
it.
American Enterprise Solutions, right? Everybody knows what that is. I just wanted to note it's
My
an
favorite
extremely
company.
close race, and if they want to, I think they said it's going to be like $80,000. So if it's within a certain range, then it's an automatic recount. This one's not going to get there. And so, it's 25 cents per ballot for a hand recount or 15 cents per ballot for a machine recount. So I wonder which one he's going to spring for.
I don't know. Probably one of each. If it's not his money, why not?
He did say, let's see here, his statement. He said, as I said on the
Take the
campaign,
lot.
as I said on the campaign trail, I will accept the eventual outcome of this election as determined by the Secretary of State, and my campaign will continue to work to ensure that the final count is as accurate as possible.
I will accept the eventual outcome once I have exhausted all options for fighting it in the court of law.
Well, I mean, nowadays that's not. I mean, this is welcome news. Like he's at least saying, at least it sounds like he's saying, he's not going to get to the end of this and then spend the next 2 years saying the election was stolen and then run again like a certain other politician.
I mean, he might
I am
still
talking
run
about
again.
Sean
do
Swope.
that.
No, I'm just joking. Just joking.
He might still run again, but at least, at least this kind of signals that he will. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Meanwhile,
honestly.
Glusen Perez has got her, interior designer putting in new drapes, and
She's already called shotgun. She's already in Washington, D.C., sitting in the chair.
that's still the funniest part to me that she just ran over there and called dibs.
Yeah. You know what? It was a bold strategy, and it seems like it's working.
It does seem like it's working.
Next story, which also involves ballot curing, Mint City Coffee Roasting to open
I was talking
Tuesday
about the one after
in
this one.
downtown Chehalis. It's right down the street from the Market Street Pub and next to Mackinac. I'm sure most of our listeners will recognize at least one of those two things.
Yeah, sure they will.
Down there. They'll have fresh coffee and merch. Jason and Shauna Bettner will manage the coffee shop with Kyle and Sarah Askin. I believe most of those are Toledo folk. Jason Bettner, I think, worked here.
I don't know, maybe.
Once upon a time, like when I first started, I think he was around doing something. I don't know what.
Very insightful.
I know. You know what? It was a long time ago in my defense.
It looks like a cool...
Longer ago than you, I believe.
No, I've been here longer. It looks like a cool new business, though, and it's been in the works for a long time. I think we had our first preview on this business from Matthew Zylstra, I want to say 5 or 6 months ago. It was a ways back.
People are so excited for this, just to have that kind of place where you can actually sit down and go to coffee in Chehalis that isn't the bakery obviously has that, but this is very coffee focused. I think it's going to be a really cool addition. Also, when are we going to change the official name of Chehalis to Mint City, because it deserves that?
Rose City's still in there. You're going to find some people that still want it to be the Rose City, even though it's not
only
Rose
10
City.
people.
In the Northwest.
It comes up in our Look Back in Time history feature every once in a while. Usually it's kids vandalizing the rose garden.
Well, there's just
cutting off all the roses.
There's just so many fewer roses now, I think. It's not really as much of a thing anymore.
I like Mint City, but then what are you going to do when IP Callison's packs up and moves out of town?
We'll just talk about how
there used to be mints
we
there.
all grow mint.
Alaska still does all kinds of stuff with the mill, and there's no
If
mill
we're talking
there.
entryway businesses to namesake your community, there's a few other entryways to Chehalis.
Well, Morton is the tie capital. Morton is the tie
Rainbow's
capital of the world, and they don't produce those anymore. They don't produce railroad ties. It's 2022.
What are they now? What's their
tie capital of the world?
I've never heard that.
What?
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Have you heard it
I'm not
before?
sure if that's
I never
their
have.
modern name, but I know that's a thing they say a lot.
I've never even heard that.
Well.
You should maybe write about that. Forks is the logging capital of the world.
I have
I thought that's what Morton
definitely
was going to be.
mentioned it in a story before, but it's okay.
South Bend's the oyster capital of the world.
Interesting.
All right. So
Anyway, it's kind of weird that Chehalis doesn't have a coffee shop like that already. It seems like a very Chehalis thing to have in downtown next to, the Shakespeare Book Company or the Diversified Games or that place with the British food or the McFiler's Theater,
Are you looking at a Google map of Chehalis right now?
Just thinking of all the nice places in downtown Chehalis. The clothing store,
Is this
Dance center.
bougier coffee than I would be used to?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't come out of a bucket at the back of a gas station. So yeah, it's a little out of your
I
class.
don't drink bucket coffee. It says starting out, we will be featuring Ethiopian, Colombian, and Guatemalan single origin coffee.
Does that sound like something you'd be into?
If it's in a bucket in the back of a gas station.
okay, Wikipedia says Morton was once known as the tie mill capital of the world in the 1950s. So I don't know why that fact is in my brain.
It's interesting. I just hadn't heard it before,
Yeah.
but true.
That just means that once in the 1950s, one guy was like, tie capital of the world.
No.
Everybody else was like, no.
No, it was a thing. They had a railroad tie dock, and then the trains would come through, and I think they would ship them away or something. That's my understanding. I don't know. Anyways, I'll move off of this now. Sorry.
I'm glad you brought us there.
Next story. Boring is good. Ballot counting continues after threats against Lewis County officials. The auditor's office got a nasty series of emails from someone who didn't vote in time and who threatened county officials, saying, quote, heads would roll either in the office or the parking lot. Election workers filed for an investigation from the sheriff's office, and the disenfranchised would-be voter claimed the office was suppressing their vote and wanted compensation for mental and emotional trauma and a public apology, and they would not accept a late postmark as an excuse. They also claimed the auditor's office, quote, fixed the lax election and that democracy was under attack due to the cheating. It's worth noting, as the story does, that every Republican on the ballot won in Lewis County.
Except for Joe Kent.
Except for Joe Kent.
Well-
yes. Well, he won in Lewis County,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
just not overall.
You're right.
There are no elected officials in partisan offices in all of Lewis County that are not Republican.
Yeah. Fixed. Anyway, I think this person needs to go outside, look at the sky, and if they can find one who is willing, kiss a lady. More on the story, somebody.
What do they just serve as muses to solve all your problems, Aaron? Is that what women are to you?
Super odd comment. I won't stand by that.
Fine.
Can I read the screenshot you shared from this person, or would that be too invasive, you think?
Go ahead.
So the individual who made this threat also posted on something online. If only Nancy Pelosi was home and not her husband. This man is a hero to the American people. Hey, Nancy, what time is hammer time? Keep it up. Hammer Democratic politicians.
Well, he is going to be awfully disappointed when he gets down to the county with his hammer and finds no Democrat politicians.
Yeah, that's true.
What a charmer, man.
I know. Yeah, that's just seems like a wonderful individual. I had a couple of people email, as did you, I think, that thought, one of them, I talked her down. She was like, well, I don't know why you dragged up Donald Trump into this. And I responded and was like, well, that's kind of made the national thing, his election denial. And she was like, oh, I get that now.
How do you know? What?
It's because, where she was coming from, and she explained it, she was nice. It's a county story. She didn't understand why the president was mentioned.
You're not the only person to bring this point up with me, and others were not like pro Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I think it was one of the first times that I've used that angle on this. Besides, I can think of the Lincoln Day, Lewis County Republicans dinner, where that was sort of a piece of the puzzle as well. But like Joe Kent has, I'll just some background for those who didn't read it, but Joe Kent has not responded to any of our requests for comments since election night. Like I've tried several times with his campaign, texting his campaign manager multiple times, and also the Daily News in Longview hasn't heard back from them. And
you could just say a blanket statement. There hasn't been a media outlet in the third district.
But and what I do have, hang on, and what I do have to go on for what Joe Kent thinks about the election is everything he tweets about it. That's the only thing we can go off of. I'm trying to get his side of the story, believe me, but he's been tweeting these things like, oh, the election is fishy or suspect, or like these dog whistles that it's stolen, and he's proudly said that it was stolen before and echoed Trump's claims. So, like, the only thing that I have to go on when it comes to these threats in Lewis County is there's one politician who's suggesting that it might be stolen. One. And so that's all I can do, you know?
Yeah, no, I thought it was completely justified. It's not like it in any way connected this specific threat to a candidate. It's like this is also happening in this political atmosphere.
Right.
So,
And really, like, I just kind of say, and this is a follow-up on that original story where we talked about Trump. I don't think he even gets mentioned again in this one, or maybe once when they say they stole the last election or something, but it's less so in this updated version. But I did feel a responsibility to kind of tie it into that because it's definitely connected, right? I mean, like, you have one candidate who's saying this is stolen, and then people who are like, oh, you stole my ballot. I don't know. Anyways.
Vote on time, people.
Yeah. I mean, look, you've known. It's been in the paper when you can vote.
But he was trying to throw the algorithm, Aaron.
Also, I saw...
It's one vote short now.
Also, I saw Joe Kent retweet something that was like, the only way to ensure your ballot is secure is to vote a week ahead of time. Oh, no. This is like from the guy who was just saying, like, the only way to ensure your ballot is secure is to vote the day of. Like, it's... Yeah.
I don't think there's a way to figure it out, but I wonder if everyone trying to vote, how many votes ended up not getting counted because they waited too long trying to break the algorithm as they said they would do.
Break the internet.
So then the other thing on ballot curing, the auditor's office and canvassing board goes through all of the different ballots that were denied for late postmarks and signatures. Mm-hmm. And if the signature doesn't match or if the voter didn't sign the ballot, they will try to get in contact with that voter and remedy it before election certification. And they're at like about a 50% success rate with that. So that's what ballot curing means. And Kent has been like pushing that from his campaign, so it's kind of encouraged more people to do it. But it's actually it is a good practice for anyone who submits a ballot to go check to make sure theirs was accepted, because if your signature doesn't match, they can't confirm that you as the voter actually filled out your ballot, and they don't want to falsely accept a vote that wasn't yours. So they have to like verify with you.
Which there is a lawsuit now we posted on Cronline over the weekend to get rid or at least limit the signature checking that gets rid of a lot of the ballots on the grounds. They made an interesting case in the lawsuit that there is no voter fraud. So why are we going through this big thing to stop voter fraud? Which I thought was an interesting approach to it.
Next story. Speaking of the county, most will see increases. Lewis County assessor reevaluation notices have been mailed to property owners, and property owners are pissed.
No kidding.
I mean, their houses
be.
are so much more valuable now. Why are they upset?
What is the county doing with all the extra money it's hauling in? How does this work? You guys know how this works. You both cover the county. Explain to me how property taxes can go up exponentially.
So
our conservative local government.
So you are one of the angry people now, right?
I am one of the angry people. 37% hike? Are you kidding me?
I mean, you've been doing a lot with the property.
I have not. It damn near flooded the house away this winter. How is it worth more money?
Diane Dorey says that people have a dry memory. They don't care if properties were flooded.
Does that count
like
for
buyers don't
her
care.
assessing staff?
I don't know.
So do you think it's like a evil plan of some sort to enrich Diane Dorey on her way
it's
out of
just
public service?
I don't think it's. I understand the inflation aspect, and I understand this is not like Diane Dorey being like, you know what, it's my last time out there. I'm just going to hit him up.
Time for the big haul.
One last score. It's not that. I'm more like the specifics and the like. How does it actually work? Like the county has a budget, and the assessor goes out there and assesses property.
You know what?
But it's not that they're not that independent.
You're
going to
love this. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Riverside Fire Chief Mike Kidda and Greg Peterson with the Lewis County Fire Chiefs Association to talk about this exact thing that you're talking about right now, which is where do property taxes go and how do levies work and how does it all get split up? And we're going to try to do like a very informational story that would benefit people who pay taxes. So I will get back to you next week and we'll talk about it more.
Okay, but it shouldn't be this big of a question. Everybody's property taxes
it's very
are
complicated.
Up a ton.
No,
Where does the money go?
It goes, well, I mean,
It covers
goes
levies,
into
it covers services, covers
the
everything.
county
But it doesn't just
budget
cover
up
levies.
No, I know.
30%?
And I know.
It's complicated. It's
But
not.
it shouldn't be.
Well, it is. Taxes are complicated.
I like how
I
you don't ever
understand.
care about anything unless it affects you.
Yeah, of course. I represent the listeners.
Well, wait
You
for
do?
Isabel to come and give her explainer next week.
As an upset property owner, yes, I do.
I can't just say, like, I don't know. It's just as complicated as anything. I mean, taxes are very hard to understand. I've had a lot of late nights in this office trying to understand these kinds of things. Especially Chad has been really helpful with this, especially like as somebody who has been on city council, because he understands the way that junior taxing districts are broken down. But I don't know, like, nobody just knows this.
Have you thought about going over to the auditor's office and talking to an appraiser? Because that's what Miss Dorey recommends.
No, but I would think about going to the assessor's office, you
Assessor.
fool.
But and talk to an appraiser.
No.
Okay.
But you know what? When the appraiser came by my house, I was very polite. Next time, I will not be. We'll stop him at the end of the driveway and say, "Sir, you are not welcome."
It's not a joke, man. Those people face violence all the time.
Yeah,
Not you
he was
inciting
very
right
nice.
violence.
No, he was actually very polite. It's not the assessed value piece of it. It's just I thought that
You probably
county was
buried
all in
like
one
a
big
$10,000 on your
pool.
property.
Yes, I buried it on the property, and they found it. They're like, ah.
the county is in a big pool, I think, but also
It's only
the
literally
money.
a big pool from January to March when it floods, which should drive property values down, but it has not.
I don't know, dude. I can't answer the question.
I'm just saying, like, I want to see 37% more government.
Do you? Jinx.
Yes.
Mr. I hate advisory boards.
Look, if I went into a pizza restaurant and they're like, pizza prices are up 50%, I'd be like, is my pizza bigger? And if they're like, oh, no, idiot, then I'd be like, well, I'm shopping somewhere else from now on.
So you're shopping somewhere else everywhere now?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to know how it works.
Do I get 400% more gasoline for this price?
I've promised.
I'm not using your product.
I've promised to give you my best. That's all we can do.
Anyway, next story. Locals plead for permanent VA clinic in Lewis County. Is that where my money's going?
No.
I understand that. After the Chehalis VA clinic closed in 2021, this story from Owen Sexton shed some light on how Lewis County veterans have coped with that shift. When it closed, about 3,400 veterans were receiving their care there, and about 3,000 of those chose to be transferred to the clinic in Olympia, while about 400 elected to find health care within their own communities instead. One of the biggest reasons why is the distance many in Lewis County must travel to get to the Olympia clinic. About 2,000 of those people are within 30 minutes of Olympia, meaning about 1,000 of them have to drive far further than that. For those in East Lewis County, for example, a visit to the Olympia Clinic may be an all-day affair. One veteran at the meeting who served in both the Navy and the Arizona National Guard, Christopher Reese, shared his own personal experiences in trying to get health care through the VA in Lewis County. Since leaving the service, he said he's done nothing but fight the VA. Quote from Reese, fight you and fight you and fight you to the point where I have made an ultimatum to my doctor just a couple weeks ago. He has a year to figure something out where I can live comfortably, or either I commit suicide or they cut off my legs, Reese said. Pretty intense stuff.
That was hard to read. Owen, who's a veteran himself, our reporter, put that down at the end, and it was kind of like getting socked in the stomach at the end of a tough read. And I guess the guy was very emotional beyond just that quote. I don't know, kind of spoke to the frustration there. Lee Gross, I thought, made great points about how he can get his appointment's just fine. I mean, he can call, I think he said on a Thursday and get it on a Tuesday. And it's unacceptable that veterans have to wait months and months and months just to get on the phone with somebody.
One of the comments on this story on Facebook said something to the effect of, I read through the whole thing and I don't see any solutions. And I think that was well done by Owen to make it feel that way. Obviously, he can't just say in his own words, there's no answer right now, but the VA has not given the solution that, solves everything so far. They're trying. They've done the mobile medical unit, but that only sees like 8 people a day, I think. So it's definitely a problem that especially people in East Lewis County are facing, and I think that he illustrated that really well with this story.
All right. Any other stories we missed before we jump into an ad and then segments?
I mean, you missed tons of stories.
There were so many.
Go to chronline.com and check it out. You can send a letter to Santa in downtown Chehalis if you go into Book and Brush or Totally Possum.
Are you going to?
Santa will write back. No, my children don't believe in Santa Claus.
What?
Never have, never will.
Did you tell them from the beginning?
I don't lie to my kids. I don't know.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Shocking. They don't believe in Santa then. We're going to take a break.
Hi, this is Jasek from Summit Funding. Here's what a recent client is saying about us.
Hi, this is Chad Taylor. Have you been thinking about purchasing or refinancing your current home? The team at Summit Funding is the best in class. Looking for a conventional FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, or even a reverse mortgage? Trust the team at Summit Funding. Coralie and I did, and we couldn't be happier.
Thank you to all of our past clients. If you have any questions, give us a call at 360-330-4037.
All right. We're back, and it's time for Tales from the Takes page, a.k.a. what happened on the opinion section. Our first item is a somber column from Brian Mitke, titled R.I.P. to a proud Coug and a lifelong newsman. It's about our former coworker, Doug Blosser. From Brian's column, he writes, Blosser spent 4 decades off and on at the Chronicle, covering a variety of jobs within the newsroom. I worked alongside him for 12 years. I remember him as helpful, positive, hardworking, and absolutely dedicated to getting the facts right before we went to print. Schwartz, you also worked alongside Doug for a long period of time, probably your whole stretch, right?
Yeah, up until 2018.
Yeah. Any good Doug stories you want to share?
Oh, lots of Doug stories. He was Mr. Reliable. He'd be, I think I put on my Facebook the other day, you could literally set your watch to him showing up because he would show up at 6:30 every morning, and it was literally on the dime. He would walk in the door. It was in the 10 a.m. deadline days. And he was a page designer when I first started working with him, and then he became newsroom assistant, and that's how I worked with him the most. And Isabel liked this one. So I do death notices now. They appear on the front. And if the funeral home doesn't send a hometown, they don't get a hometown. Like, I'll just put the name of the person and their age or whatever. Doug would spend 2 hours tracking down the hometown. Like, and not only just tracking it down, like if he got somebody at the funeral home was like, I think they were from Chehalis. He'd spend even more time, like, looking through the internet, through whatever he could find, and solidifying that stuff. And he brought that to, I think, every aspect of the job. And he was just the older guy that kind of looked knowingly at us young folk every now and again, just let us make the same mistakes he probably did when he was younger. And yeah, I think newsroom Doug Blosser will ring through the building forever. That's how I always used to answer the phone.
Yeah, he was a relentless fact checker and detail man. If you set him after something, whether it was just like hammering out the details of a death notice, or if like dates didn't quite add up in something he read, he would spend hours on the phone trying to settle it and make sure it all worked out right. So,
or something with a letter to the editor. He made people who, I mean, just to be straight up, people who wrote very like ignorant, poorly written letters, he would spend time on it and make it look like they made a cogent point. And then he'd be the guy that put the headline on there and everything else. He was also, I became editor, I think I was like 28, 29, something like that, and definitely was a little insecure in the job, and he made it a point to just come in every day and talk to me, and he was just extremely gracious to, make me feel like I was doing a good job, at least even when I wasn't. Maybe he was just sucking up, I don't know. But Doug was a good one.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he was. And as Brian mentions in his column, the biggest Coug fan.
Oh, yeah. He would talk to me against my will about Coug women basketball for 20, 30 minutes.
One of the most excited I've ever seen Doug was he was bummed out about something going on, probably 2012, 13, somewhere around there. And we happened to have Nike McClure was in the office, WF West basketball star. And of course, she went on to play college ball at Wazoo. She was quite good at Wazoo. And as her and her friends were leaving, I was like, hey, stop by and talk to that guy in the office up there. Just tell him who you are. He'll know who you are. But just say hi. And I've never seen Doug so thrilled as when a Coug basketball star stopped to say hello to him.
There's also a gas leak one time in the building next door, and they evacuated our building, and we all evacuated. He had his own office at this time. We all evacuated, waited probably about 10, 15 minutes, came back in, went back to work. About an hour passes, and Doug comes popping out of his office. Did you guys hear about the gas leak next door?
Oh my gosh.
Been in his office the entire time.
Yeah. That was Doug.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, rest in peace, Doug. Yeah, he was a special newsroom guy. Next news item, we have a letter to the editor. I enjoyed this one.
Oh boy, you're selecting I need to start looking at these notes.
Letter titled, "You Get What You Voted For." A true takesman has weighed in on our very own opinion page. Here's a few highlights from this, quote, "Democrats are all fools" letter. That's not a quote. I added that quote. A couple lines I enjoyed. "Congratulations to the Democrats for rigging the election with the most ignorant, gullible, and misinformed/disinformed electorate in American history." How could you even know that? Another quote.
Okay, but wait. This claim is you're rigging the election by getting people to vote.
Yes.
That's hard for me to wrap my mind around as well.
Well, if you idiots didn't vote, the Republicans would have won, according to this letter writer. Another quote from the letter. "Think of our local blowhard letter writer, Marty Ansley."
Come on.
Just
leave Marty alone. Marty responded in tomorrow's edition, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait. He also cites 3 big lies in the campaign season. Among them, that Republicans will ban abortion and cut Social Security and Medicare. He calls these lies not because Republicans don't want to do them, but because Republicans don't have the means to cut all these things, which they would totally do if they could. But he's just like that's even possible.
It did have that tone.
And then his last line, "I'll leave you with this. Are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? Those of you who answer in the affirmative are liars." Do you
I can't
remember
be personally better.
2020?
That was
2020, the pandemic. 1 million people died.
when I was editing this letter. I read that first part, like, "Are you better off?" And that's the famous Ronald Reagan line, right?
Yeah.
And so I immediately answered it in my head, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing better. Like things are good." And then I read the next one. You liar!
You fool.
We appreciate the letter submission nonetheless. All letters, send them to letters.
I got a kick out of this letter. Great work by Marty Ansley's arch nemesis.
Can I throw one in before you go to your next one?
Yeah, sure.
This one was from Dennis Shane, and it was in the weekend edition. And Dennis Shane is one of my favorite letter writers because he does what you do sometimes. He stretches his sarcasm so far that you don't know if he's being sarcastic or
Whatever
making
do
a
you
point.
mean?
But his was titled, "Consider a future where we run out of wind, water, and
I
sunlight."
did like that.
And let's see, I had this line here. "Just think of the infrastructure and technology involved in making green energy a reality. If we become solely dependent on it, the world will have to build massive pipelines to transport wind, water, and sunlight to where it is needed. Imagine the risks involved in a pipeline containing wind, water, or light should fail and pollute our lands and oceans." And I'm not poking fun. I just found it funny that like the first 3 likes on this on Facebook were all like known hardcore Republicans who I think took it literally. Like, and I thought that was funny.
Do you think that like the people that didn't like that letter, like, yeah, a pipeline full of sunlight, more like a laser. We don't want those around. Another letter to the editor I enjoyed. Headline: County Commissioners dead wrong to deny YMCA rezoning. The writer takes the commissioners to task for booting the YMCA, and they raise a lot of good points about the economic impacts it could have. They don't specifically mention this, but what if they improved the land and it drove up the value of that property, and then that lessened the value of the properties remaining in the county?
Mm-hmm.
So, we didn't just take the high hard one on property taxes. Anyway.
Still stuck on that news item, are we?
Yeah, I am.
It's not just news, Eric. It's personal.
It is. All of it should be personal. Well, anyway, other quotes from this letter. How much more wholesome does a potential project get than a summer camp run by the YMCA? As a reminder, that stands for Young Men's Christian Association, whose mission statement is, quote, to put Christian principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. Another quote, if a summer camp for kids run by a Christian nonprofit organization doesn't align closely enough with Lewis County values, what would? Good question.
It was a good letter. I mean, that's
Yeah.
L.L. Hauer, I believe, down in Winlock.
Mm-hmm.
We had a response to that one that'll also be in tomorrow's paper from John Coulter in Centralia, and that one's titled, Don't Let YMCA Ruin Mineral Lake.
Oh, okay.
It's not as... Yeah, it's a little shorter.
You want children swimming in our lake?
It actually compares Mineral Lake to
Lake Stevens in
where
Snohomish
there
County.
is no YMCA camp.
Yes, but there are McMansions.
Right.
And increasing traffic.
That was kind of the YMCA's argument, right? Was like, if you have this, then there won't be McMansions.
Yeah. He was more attacking the King County developers
Yeah.
than YMCA. But also YMCA, don't get it twisted.
Yeah. It's just wild to me. I'm going to skip it.
Let's move on.
Next item, Julie McDonald commentary. Did deinstitutionalization, God, what a long word, of mental hospitals lead to homelessness? I actually read all of this column.
Wow.
Something I can't say about anything else on this entire notes document.
Good for you.
Is that why you added it on here, just to say you read it?
Yeah. She weaves in a family story of an institutionalized relative who is probably just depressed and talks about Lewis County's new homeless encampment ban and the obvious questions that have gone unanswered through its passage. But I liked her approach here and her questions and the story. Good stuff. Did you read the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Liar.
I read everything.
Mm-hmm.
Except for some wire stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all we got for Tales from the Takes page. Anything I missed? Anything you want to bring up?
No, that's fine. That's
Okay.
I think that's good. We've been kind of light on that page over the holidays. A lot of letters.
Next up, People's Champion of the Week. We have a few contenders. One of them, Salvation Army of Lewis County, kicks off 2022 Red Kettle campaign. Salvation Army has had a year of floods, fires, and serving those affected by the housing crisis. through rental programs and establishing the county's only night-by-night homeless shelter. Asked to summarize their work, Jin Pak simply said, "We serve people," and Isabel will elaborate on who Jin Pak is.
Captain of the Lewis County Salvation Army, Jin and Stephen Peck. They're a couple. I put this on the notes because in a lot of our coverage over the last year, with the fires and floods especially, the Salvation Army has been a background character, helping people who are displaced and feeding people and putting up shelters and managing them, being there all the time. And they're really, really sweet people. They also run the county's only night-by-night shelter, like you just said, and a bunch of other programs, food bank, a Bible school, clothing, hygiene, and pretty much just do whatever. When someone comes to them and says, like, we need help with something, they will try to figure out how to make that happen. And they are just kicking off their Red Kettle campaign. You hear, like, the bell ringers outside the grocery store. That's them seeking $1 from every person in Lewis County is their ultimate goal, which I do not think they typically hit. But they did get a really big donation this year from a local church. But anyways, I just felt like this story was an opportunity to kind of talk about what they do instead of just what they're doing under a certain circumstance. So I wanted to throw them in here and say that we appreciate all their work.
I want to throw an honorary nominee out. Doesn't need to be up for addition, but we got some mail this morning that I shared with you guys from Jane Kuja. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. Jane Curtis Kuja. Mm-hmm. And she was complimenting Karina Stanton, our freelance reporter, on her story on 10 years of bachelor degrees at Centralia College. Yet another story you missed for this news dump. And she complimented her for that and gave a little of her own experience. And she said, "And as for you, Mr. Schwartz, many thanks for the News Dump podcast. You and your cohorts have me laughing out loud and enjoying all the local news and insights in publishing the Chronicle. On days when everyone is grumpy and yelling at you, remember there's a 79 years young, wheelchair driving, still full of life lady at Centralia Point Assisted Living, subscribing, reading online, in print, listening to the podcast, and enjoying every moment of the way you bring her community to her in the comfort of her home."
Aww.
Thanks, Karina, you, and the rest of the Chronicle and podcast staff. It was just the sweetest email to get on a Monday morning.
That is the sweetest ever. Thank you so much, Jane.
When she mentioned everybody being grumpy and yelling at you, were you thinking about your work downstairs or upstairs in this studio?
At home.
And another one that I put on the People's Champion list, which, you know, it's okay if we don't choose him, but we said that we would give Lee Gross his flowers when the time came.
I don't remember saying that.
I know that you said it. Schwartz said it.
How about I give him 37% more property taxes this year instead? Would that be good enough?
I just wanted to say that I wrote a story after an exit interview of sorts with him, and Scott Brummer, the commissioner-elect for that position, will be sworn in at 8:30 on Wednesday. Gross also detailed his son's battle with cancer and death in January and how that affected him as a leader and everything, which was a perspective that we've not yet had in the paper. And it was very interesting to talk to him in the very, like, candid way of, I'm getting out of here, I can say whatever I want kind of thing. So thanks to Lee Gross for stepping up. He talks about, like, it wasn't easy to fill in for Gary Stamper considering how much people loved him, but I think that he played a similar role in the end.
And this might be my last opportunity to share on the podcast that Lee Gross is the only man known to have punched an elk in the face.
I knew that was
Very
coming.
true.
Yep.
Shouldn't be in his flowers as he didn't want, mess around and find out, elk.
Was he like in a bathrobe too? Or?
Let's see, there's a lot of that we might have added to it over the years, but Dan Schreiber was the reporter that talked to him at the time, and he was just having like this off the cuff conversation with him, and he had it on speakerphone, as you know, Dan did, and I don't think he thought that was going to end up in the paper, but he was like, he kept getting in the flowers, so I had to go out there and socked him in the face. I like Lee though. I think Lee's one of the good ones, and I agree that was a nice story, a nice send off.
Thanks.
It's important to remember, as you just mentioned, that Dan Schreiber took all of his calls like Chaz Tenenbaum, standing at his desk with his hands on his hips and the speakerphone on.
And tie loosened.
Yes. Siren's banger of the
Wait,
week.
we didn't pick one.
It's Doug Blosser. Doug Blosser wins.
That's
Doug
fair.
Blosser
That's
wins.
totally fair.
Siren's banger of the week. I didn't get too deep into this. I liked this one. And air freshener and toothpaste were reported stolen from the 500 block of South Tower Avenue on November 22nd. The case is under investigation as police search for a suspect with a beautiful smile and a breezy musk.
I don't have it in front of me, but one that got some traction online over the last couple of weeks was the new intersection of U Street and Mellon, where they have the circular brick there. Someone came upon that for the first time and thought it was a roundabout, so they just went right into a right-handed turn and then slammed into another vehicle.
Oh, no.
So when I went through there again the following day after reading that, I was like, I could kind of see if it's your first time here. Like, it looks like it. But, I mean, there are the lights. You could look at those, too.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Hey,
Both good points.
You were editing sports pages when I said this, but we were at the proofing desk looking through. I was looking at the records page, and I called out to you, and you just didn't respond. I think you were listening to music.
I had headphones in, yeah.
Yeah,
Arcade Fire.
I was like, Aaron, an indecent exposure. You're going to be so excited, but don't get too excited. And then just silence, just crickets. And I was like, bummer.
I heard it.
No, I saw that one in there. It was like a guy got caught jerking it in public.
Yeah, I just
We had
figured
another one of those for
we used to
tomorrow.
always talk about indecent exposure on this podcast, and we haven't had one in a long time. So.
This isn't a Sirens Banger of the Week, but it is crime, so I'm going to throw this one in just because Emily just had this one published to chronline.com. Rochester man accused of biting woman in Centralia, also facing attempted murder charge in Cowlitz County. The only reason I bring it up is so he allegedly got rejected for a kiss, and so his response was to bite her, which I'm glad he was arrested. But he told police that she had bitten herself.
Has he been
face.
sending
In the face.
Has he been sending any emails to the elections office in Lewis County?
Don't know. Don't think so. But yeah, that story's up on Chronline as well.
Okay. All right.
That's kind of a reach of a callback, but I did kind of get there eventually.
That guy should not.
Kiss a lady.
Should not, yeah. Facebook comments of the week. I had a note on here to ask Schwartz about the nice email he got from a listener who appreciates him and his cohorts.
Eric Schwartz and the Dumpers.
I'm proud to be a cohort.
Anna, we had a comment on a story about a massage clinic opening. The comment said, "Wish I could see the article. Might be something I need."
Oh, I was working with this person.
There was no paywall.
No, but someone else echoed and said they also couldn't open it. So I went ahead and slapped the full text down there in the comments for them.
Oh, maybe
God,
there
you've
was
been salty in the Facebook comments lately.
Yeah, mixing it up a little bit.
maybe
there
there
you
was
go.
just a
Good for
problem
you.
with the link or something.
On a post about Centralia College's 10 years of bachelor degrees, somebody posted or applied to Rana Vijay Sharma. I'll bet you could make more with a bachelor's degree from Centralia College.
Oh, hell yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good
I think
reference.
we've been beating the scammers back lately. It hasn't been as
little bit.
You just
pervasive.
assume that this commenter is a scammer?
I know that name.
No, I do too.
I've banned that name like 30 times and he keeps coming back.
A comment on the
Just
threats
teasing.
against election workers. The commenter says, "An investigation by the Lewis County Sheriff, they'll probably tell election workers that the person who sent the threats is a good kid, like they did about Aaron Christian's murderers."
Topical.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we
It
have
did have a thing.
yeah, there was another protest over the weekend that there will be coverage on in tomorrow's paper if you want to read about
It's on chronline.com too. Emily wrote up a short story to go with it as well, but it's mostly photos.
On a history item about the Chronicle publishing a prayer in its 1942 edition, this commenter says, "Odd, now there is no prayer in the Chronicle on Thanksgiving, and it's our lands under threat of being a barren waste by our own government." Shots fired at you, Eric Schwartz. Thoughts?
I welcome this because there literally was a Bible verse in the paper that day on the opinion page. It said, "Be thankful," and it was from like Psalms or Proverbs, and it had a praying Uncle Sam.
Which one was it?
And I shared it
Yeah.
after this, and this commenter liked that post. This particular commenter, who I won't name, also spent most of Thanksgiving posting links about Bolsonaro and Brazil
I
and
saw
voter
that.
fraud on
Curious.
every single post that we had. I won't speak to what I think about it, but yeah, he's been out there sometimes.
By the way, that reminds me, I love my mom. I'm not trying to
Here it
say
comes.
that I
Here
don't
we
love
go.
her.
Bill hates her mom.
No, I love her. She's great. But one of the things that she said recently that was in this same vein was when we had the Halloween banner, we made the Chronicle look all spooky for Halloween. She was like, "Well, are you going to do that for All Souls Day?"
Well, Easter.
yeah.
You can have the O in the Chronicle be like a
What's
tomb.
There you go.
Dia de
Roll
los
away the
Muertos?
stone.
No? Yeah.
It was
The
funny.
T.
And on the third day, Schwartz resurrected, voice of the people.
Oh, never that.
On the county property tax increases, this commenter says, when are government agencies going to be required to run on balanced budgets? It is time that managers are held accountable to work within the budget they are given.
Hey, speaking of this, I almost put in the notes but didn't, but I maybe should have just to remind you. West Thurston Fire has to close 3 stations because of not passing levies, and they are, no offense to anyone else, they're maybe our favorite fire station here at the Chronicle.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt.
They are.
Because they are so incredible and hardworking, and they talk to us about everything and have been great at getting us access and telling us what's going on out there. But it's a real problem. Like, that is a serious issue. And so lest us not forget.
Do you know why most people would not vote for those kind of levies?
Because of
boy.
property taxes
Because their
increases.
property taxes are already so high.
But the thing is, this is why it's important to have these conversations, because people tend to assume that because the property taxes are going up, these services get more money automatically, when that isn't how it is. Anyways, but we'll talk more about that next week, like I said.
Comment on a story about Lee Gross leaving office. Commenter says, I think Lee Gross, Gross, is a better spelling.
Well, that's not very nice.
Mean.
And
Hold on, one more before your last one, because that's a good walk-off. I had Warren McLeod on the story about the Grinchy Christmas over at the Chehalis Centralia Railroad and Museum. And he wrote, that poor Grinch gets the blame, but he reformed and became a friend of Whoville. It's our coroner, Warren McLeod.
I love that.
Our coroner making jokes about people's heart conditions. It was a heart attack. Anyway,
I hope you didn't hear that, Aaron. It's offensive.
Was it?
It's offensive to me.
And a comment on the tweet about the last podcast 2 weeks ago. This tweeter just replied, "Shut up, you freak."
I loved it. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, great
It
stuff.
was also just you two, right?
Yeah, it was. It was just
Makes
us
it
freaks.
a little bit funnier.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, what's in the next edition?
I'll
covered
make
a lot of it.
quick rundown. We did talk about a lot of it, but
You want to talk about roofs?
Swans.
we probably should talk about roofs. We're contractually obligated. We're already going to have to send a prorated rate since we missed the Thanksgiving week podcast.
Oh, there's.
We could talk about roofs twice.
We could. Yeah, I'd go on.
No, I was going to tell you what's in the paper. We have a short roundup from Isabel on Lewis County's budget, with the takeaways being the sheriff's office is not getting their requested boost, at least not what they asked for.
So I'm
And
not getting 37%
new
more
shelters.
sheriffs?
There's an animal shelter and a homeless shelter make up about nearly 14% of the total proposed budget for those two.
Oh, yeah, I meant to mention this. I was going to say this on the podcast. Sorry I didn't bring it up sooner. Whatever. But the shelter, the night-by-night shelter, Becky Butler, the budget administrator, said if all goes well with construction, it will be open in April 2023. But because of supply chain issues, it's very possible to be later than that. But I know a couple times we've asked for a specific month to nail down on that when we've had conversations about it. So I wanted to make sure that got brought up.
We also have a Owen Sexton story on Devin Taylor, a Centralian who represented Team USA at the World Roller Games in Argentina recently. Which
Oh,
I
okay.
thought was pretty
One
cool.
sport Aaron does not know about.
And he's also a
I'm well
local
aware,
club as well.
actually.
Roller hockey?
Oh,
Do you know, I have a connection. Yeah, I know things about roller hockey.
they wear skates. I know that.
They sure do. I've seen Boogie Nights. Go on. What is
I
it?
was going on before you rudely interrupted me. There's a roundup of Public Disclosure Commission complaints that has been wasting away in the unedited general news folder for about 3 weeks because it kept changing every day. But that's out there now. You can go read about all that. There's nothing huge in there. And then we got a nice feature on the mistletoe Christmas tree farm from Emily and lots of other good stuff.
Where is that one?
West of
I was
Chehalis,
going to say west of Shales,
Stearns Road.
where the sun sets.
Hey, here's a cool thing. Not news, but who was it? Michael Irvin with the Twin City Rotary was just telling me that he lives near Stearns Road and saw a bear in a standoff with a coyote within the last few months. And he showed me a picture of it.
Why didn't you get the picture?
Because it's like several months ago. I
don't care.
Okay, well, I told him he should send
When animals fight, if we have photos of it,
No, they
people
didn't
need
fight.
to see it.
They didn't fight, but they just look at one another. We were talking about it in person, and I said to him, you should send those kinds of things to us because we'll always post them. Like, we love that stuff. But anyways, on Stearns Road, I was aghast that I had never seen a bear for my whole life until this year on the Chehalis River, yet there is one on the very hill I live on.
You know what? I agree with you. I feel the same way. I have been in plenty of positions to see a bear, and I have not seen one, and I'm very upset about it.
You've never
You
seen a
should be.
bear? That's
I mean, I've seen like a zoo and shit like that,
Right.
but not like in the wild.
Yeah,
Jeez.
and
you need to get out more, Aaron.
You live in the places, I live in the places that you
Yeah.
would think we would see them.
Yeah.
When I lived in downtown Centralia and I had a bear in my backyard. Remember that? Like 5 years
yeah.
ago? I just let my dog out and there's just a bear in my backyard.
Was that where you're living now?
No, over on Rock Street.
Oh, okay.
Like
Whoa, that's
the
even
middle
weirder.
of town.
It was weird.
It
Then
was-
the cops came and killed it.
Yeah, they
thankfully.
murdered it. Actually, they said they were going to take it
Wait,
and release
the
it somewhere.
cops or WDF?
Well, the Fish and
Okay.
Wildlife Police.
Okay.
But they,
The previous time a bear appeared in downtown Centralia, the cops just killed it.
no, this time they did too. They said they tranquilized it and brought it down, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna go release it somewhere." And then we called like 2 days later. They're like, "Yeah, that didn't work out."
Oh no!
It's like that fat bear up north. They had the whole public looking for it, like snitching on this bear, and they're like, "Well, we just want to get the collar off." And then somebody
Wink,
reported it, and they
wink.
found it and just shot
They
it dead.
killed it. Yeah.
R.I.P. Fat Bear.
Do you guys know a family-owned company called the Roof Doctor?
I do now. Tell me more.
Since 1959, they've been providing our area with roofing, roof repair, roof cleaning, emergency roofing, all your roofing needs. They'll cover you in Olympia, Chehalis, Tacoma, Shelton, Hoquiam, even Longview. I know you love Longview.
But as you know, I don't trust you. Do you have any testimonials from anyone else that
Buddy,
might have used
do I
the Roof
ever.
Doctor?
What if I told you my friend Doug R. sent me a little message?
Well, I put a lot of weight in what Doug R. has to say.
He said the roofing was done timely and the quality was fine. Keith and crew, great Keith, good guy.
Oh, we love Keith.
Can't go wrong
Our
when
boy.
Keith's on the crew.
No.
They went beyond the norm, were easy to work with, and explained everything to my satisfaction. Tom and the crew were fast. Tom came by too.
Oh,
You know
Tom was there too?
Yeah, you guys know Tom. Showed appreciation for giving Roof Doctor business, and cleanup was good. I would go to Keith again, and I will certainly recommend him and the Roof Doctor to friends and others, as we are doing now.
Hell yeah.
Very nice.
The Roof Doctor. You can give him a call, 360-736-0246. You can see that big number on the side of their warehouse off I-5 between Chehalis and Napavine. Sure you've seen it.
How many free estimates do you think they'd pass? Like if I was just getting estimates at various buildings all around town before they told me to just kick rocks.
Oh, they would. You know what, sir? Your business is good here, and we will continue to provide you with free estimates. The Roof Doctor, they make house calls. Expert roofers in Chehalis.
Can we hear that trumpeter
otherwise.
swan call one more time and then a walk off?
There you go.
Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah. Honk, honk.
Yep.
Sounds like that.
We are sponsored by Summit Funding and the Roof Doctor. As you know, leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts if you feel so inclined. It does not bother me if you don't.